Good morning, everyone. Hope everyone's doing good today. So, got a special treat for you. Got Grant from the Garden of Eder going to hang out with us, answer any of your questions, any of my questions. I know we've talked a little bit during stream, so I think this is going to be a good one. All right, so I like to start out the stream by just thanking all of my members. So Shelly Speed over at Lucky Aquatics, Bob Moss, you're awesome, Robert Redmond, Tater Salad, Jamie Anderson, my lovely wife Amber, and then of course Big Daddy Mark from Mark Shrimp Tanks. So thank you guys so much. Definitely appreciate all of you. So Grant, how are you doing this morning?
I'm all right. Yourself?
Doing pretty good, ready to talk about some shrimp and pick your brain, and I think this is going to be a good one.
Yeah, of course, man. I'm always down to talk shrimp, so.
Yes. All right, so we got Amber in here, All You Can Wheat, Brian Dodson, Robert Redman. So I will kick it off with the first question. And how long have you been keeping shrimp?
I think I'm going
when
on.
Did you start?
I think I'm going on 8 years of keeping shrimp in tanks.
Okay. So how long have you been keeping shrimp outside of tanks? Does that mean that you've had ponds and stuff before that?
No, when I was a kid, we got the Wiki Wachi Springs right here, and it's just like a little slide adventure park and water park. And I go on the slides a little bit. I'd swim out to the dock and whatnot, but I'd spend most of my day at the lazy lagoon with a net in the guppy grass and catching gambusia and ghost shrimp. And I'd keep the ghost shrimp in a bucket and see how many I could catch in a day and try to beat my personal record. But then I'd never bring them home. I just release them at the end of the day.
That's good.
The shrimp didn't need as much oxygen and kind of tolerated the heat a little bit better than the guppies did. So when I wanted to go down the slides, the guppies would not be in good condition. When I got back, the shrimp.
Oh, no.
So I just kept shrimp by the end of the day.
That's too funny. So the guppies, what's the word I'm looking up?
Also, I know now that how aggressive they are. So as soon as I probably left them alone, the gambusia were probably beating the crap out of each other.
Oh, so yeah.
It was probably a mixture of that as well. And I just didn't realize that as a kid, because when you look in the bucket as a kid, they're all running around and scared of you, especially when you're sticking your hand in the bucket trying to look at, we have some of the, the melanistic ones. And so you catch those as a kid and you think you got something really cool, and it's just a melanistic one. They're all over the place when you come out here.
Gotcha. Yeah, that I was looking at ghost shrimp for somebody the other day, and just going down the different types and the grass shrimp. And I know in Florida you guys have a lot of grass shrimp out there in the canals and the waterways, all kinds of stuff.
They're like in every body of water.
Yeah, same with cichlids and Oscars and gar.
Not this far up. You got to go like an hour south to get the cool cichlids.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So anybody out there, you guys got a question for Grant? Local Austin's in here. Good morning. Brian Dodson, Garcia Aquatics. Kitchen cricket is super loud today. Yeah, I apologize. I can't do anything about the cricket. I can go bang on the rack over there. I use cinder blocks in my shrimp rack, and the crickets like to climb in there and do their thing. And I've put traps out, and I can't spray poison. So
I used to breed chameleons, and we would buy crickets by like the thousands.
Yeah.
And after you open the first box, you learn really quick. You got to do it outside. And no matter how hard you try and how big of a container you try to shake them into, there's always that one James Bond cricket who holds on to the very edge of the box, and then he leaps in the perfect direction to escape.
You never get him.
The anole lizards around my house would know every time I come out back with a box, I put the box outside first, and then I go get all the supplies to open up the box and make another cricket container. And by the time I get back, I'd have a mass swarm of anole crickets or anole lizards in my area, and they would try to get the ones that would escape and run away. And then I'd throw in all the dead ones and stuff like that too. So And then some would get away. There, all the pavers and stuff in my backyard you can turn over. There's white belly crickets underneath all of them.
Oh, I can imagine. Yeah, with us being in Arizona, we don't have the cold snap that takes out a lot of stuff like that. So we've got crickets year round.
So we got a question on moss.
I see that. So go for it.
I tried once upon a time to like really grow different kinds of mosses and keep a couple different kinds in one tank and grow them on the little algae, the stainless steel mesh and the 3D printed moss ledges and stuff like that. And what I found was all I really did was grow a lot of algae. And back then I was growing like, or only doing like 20% water changes every week. And if that, sometimes only 10%. And really, I wasn't able to grow moss the way I can until I started doing 40 to 50 40 to 50% water changes every other week.
Yeah, that was, excuse me. I believe I asked you a similar question. So All You Can Wheat says, everyone says moss is best for plants and shrimp. I can never keep it alive and healthy looking, always get some sort of algae. So I've suffered from the same thing. And like Grant just said, is water changes. So too much nitrates, too much buildup in the water can just, that algae will take over. You know, algae is very opportunistic, and any extra nutrients, it's going to thrive. So keeping up with those water changes really, really helps. And you heard it from him, you know, he breeds tons of shrimp and 40 to 50% water changes every other week. I'm doing 30% every week. And here, well, to prove my point, you know, like you can do large water changes on shrimp tanks as long as you drip it back in and the water parameters are exactly the same. So as long as you're aging your water, making sure everything's remineralized to the same outcome.
And another trick is if your lights can be raised at all, raise your lights up. Even 4 inches can really help with the algae.
I noticed that I use NICRU lights. They're just the low cost ones that you can get on Amazon, you know, direct from China and whatnot. And they're almost too strong. They're almost too powerful, which maybe if you're running CO2 or something like that, they would be good lights. But for what we do in the shrimp tanks and just trying to grow moss and a little bit of algae, I don't think you really need, you know, these overpriced, overpowered lights.
No, I just go with the cheapest LED lights I can get.
Yeah, just like the Home Depot special.
No, the Aqua Neats or the Beamworks.
Okay.
Those are usually the cheapest, like per inch LED.
Are they?
I do look for like a full spectrum. I just think it gives a better look.
Yeah, definitely.
So can I talk about the shrimp contest real quick?
Of course, go for it, man.
So next month, February 26th, 27th at Aquashella, Orlando, we are hosting the shrimp contest again, the American Shrimp Contest. You can sign up at aquashella.com under main stage, under contest, shrimp contest. And what it is you enter, there's 6 different categories. You enter your best shrimp. Your groups need to be 3 to 5 shrimp. It doesn't matter if it's male or female, but what you want are your largest, your best looking, brightest color, your best patterns, and you want them all to look the same, 3 to 5 shrimp. And you can mail them in with a return label. I can send them back to you. We're trying to work out like a auction to where you can send your shrimp in and we'll do like a 70-30 split or something like that. So you could actually make money for sending your shrimp in and not have to worry about, you know, getting your shrimp home or anything like that. And or you could also bring your shrimp into the contest. And if you do pay for a slot in the contest, you do get into Aquashella for free. So it is a great way to promote the hobby and, you know, get other people interested. You should see the reefers come over from buying all the expensive corals and everything like that. And then they see these little tiny shrimp and they go, oh, I can get that for my saltwater tank. We're like, no, this is freshwater. And they're like, oh, you can get this kind of color in freshwater. And they're like,
surprises people.
Way too much money. And I mean, and they're the ones that are down to spend, you know, the expensive money on the Galaxy Tigers and the Galaxy Pintos, because they'll pay that money for a saltwater shrimp that could possibly get eaten by the corals and other fish in the tanks just for them to view it for like a month. And like that's just common for saltwater people. So I keep telling all my saltwater buddies, we're stealing your customers whenever we do these shows right next to you. So it's just a matter of time before freshwater shrimp will make their way over and be a bigger part of the hobby. But um, we're trying to do it with the contest, and Aquashella gives us like that stage to present ourselves, and it's not that competitive. It's for beginners. So if you've been breeding your shrimp and they're your shrimp to breed and they're of age, at least 3 centimeters in size, you can enter them in the contest, and you'd be surprised how well you do. And we're going to do a point system this year. So like a championship playoff where your total points for each category you enter in, you can enter 2 groups, and each one of the contests, Orlando, Dallas, and Chicago. And at the end of the year, we're going to do a total points for the best American breeder of the year. And then we'll also do for individual categories, like the best Neo breeder, the best Taiwan bee breeder. We'll probably do like a Tiger King spinoff award or something like that. So
Nice.
You're going to want to enter as many groups as you possibly can, and you can sign up already for Aquashella. If anybody has any questions, feel free to ask now or reach out to me on Facebook or my email, first and last name @gmail.com. So,
yeah, it's definitely, I've seen pictures, I've seen the videos, and Aquashella it's amazing. So this is, if you're, you know, a U.S. shrimp keeper, shrimp breeder, that's what you want to shoot for. That's what you want to do, is you want to go to these shows, see everybody else and see what they do. And then, you know, you can always go, and they have sales there too, where you can purchase shrimp. Right, Grant? People bring stuff to sell.
I'll have a table right across the shrimp contest. So, and then Flip Aquatics will be there.
Yep.
Biped Shrimp is there. I think Badfish is also going to be there, but I don't know if they're going to have shrimp. So, but I'm sure there's going to be other vendors there that'll have shrimp that I just don't recognize their names. So,
gotcha.
But then, are you going to enter shrimp yourself?
Depending on time frame, I'm going to.
So I know you sent me the
house build and everything,
shrimp, and hoping those grow out. But I know you don't want to enter shrimp because you don't feel like they're yours. But if you bought shrimp and then you bred them and you have babies that are growing up, man, those are yours. Enter them in the contest. It's going to help everyone out. And you'd be surprised because you might not be that ready for this contest, but the ones you enter now will get you some points. And then by the end of the year, you don't know those 5 to 8 points that you get. You know, those aren't winning scores, but those might add on the points by the end of the year to help you win some playoffs. So
exactly. And it's like anything you do. If you're going to get into something and you want to do it, like, just go for it. Don't hold back. And I give that advice to people asking about YouTube. You know, they're like, well, how do I start? I'm like, just create a video, just put it up there, just do it. Like, it doesn't have to be good, it doesn't have to be bad. That's how you're going to learn. And, you know, entering the contest, seeing what you're graded on, what you're scored on, that's how you're going to see.
And Rob was talking about setting up a website just for the shrimp contest that you can go up and view your scores and see how you did, and you know, keep track of your total points for the end of the year. So it's definitely going to be worth entering in the shrimp, and we're trying to put together a great contest and trying to grow it. We had 30 entries for Texas, and we want to beat that every single show from here on out.
Yeah, and you guys, you do a lot of work for the hobby and the industry, and I definitely appreciate it.
We got some questions now, though.
Yeah, I see that.
Bring them up one at a time. I knew it would be a good time killer.
All right, let's go. We'll go back. So BJ Palmer says, one always escapes, talking about the crickets. Jamie's going to be lurking. Driftwood, Aqua Studio. If you get NICRU timers, you can dim the NICRU lights. And then all you can eat. So what size pores of the sponge pre-filter should I get to reduce chances of babies being sucked in? Want to add a power head to sponge filter and add a CO2 reactor. Want to do it the safest way possible. So I can answer this, or you can.
Oh, this is all you. I don't have any knowledge on sponge sizes at all.
All right. So what I'll do is I'm just going to give you an example here. So we're going to cut to this guy. See if I could do this without getting all tangled up. So on my 60 gallon, what I have is I just attach the power head straight to the sponge filters. So you don't need to do anything special. Most power heads will attach right to that sponge filter there. So as far as like pore size goes for shrimp, I always say get the smallest you can, because you don't want to have those coarse sponges when you're dealing with shrimp, because if babies get in there, they get sucked up, and it's not good. But what I found is you can actually connect multiple sponge filters together by just taking them apart, and then that power head usually fits right into that tube. So there's no need for pre-filters or anything if you just want to add a power head. It just depends on what you're going for aesthetics. Sounds like you're setting up a planted tank, and most planted tanks try to hide all the plumbing and different filters and stuff. So it just depends on what you're looking for. All right, Brian's got a question. What are your thoughts on putting active substrate in a plexiglass box and very little substrate on the bottom, like the folks in Asia are doing? I would really like to try this. You have more experience with shrimp. I'll let you take this one.
It's not something I see myself doing. It's probably maybe something I'll just do like one tank of it just to do one for the channel or something like that. But to do it for all of my tanks, I personally would rather just start over with a brand new tank, brand new substrate if I got to change out substrate. I don't know. I grow a lot of plants in my substrate, and when I tear down the tanks, like all the gloso and stuff like that you never want to touch, or the cryptoparva, that's when I get to pull those plants out of the tank, is when I go to replace the substrate. I've got like a tank of cryptoparva that's like 3 years old, and that stuff grows so slow. But like when I need to replace the substrate, I've got a quarter of that parva I could pay for, and pay for all the substrate on the bottom of the rack. Nice. So like that's how I view it. But these Asian breeders are also like replacing the substrate out every year, every 2 years and stuff like that. And I feel like that's because the substrate on the top is being used, but the bottom is just getting filled with mulm and stuff, and it's stagnant, and you don't really get the most out of the substrate. So like some of my tanks are still going for like 5 or 6 years almost. So I just feel like not replacing the substrate as much as possible would be better off for me. So it's cool to see like the little box filters and stuff that they make out of them, and some of them have the substrate in them too. But like those are for people who replace their substrate every year, and I got too many tanks to be doing that.
So I know you just mentioned that the bottom layer is not being used. So are you saying that over time it'll start to be used?
I just feel like in the tiny little boxes, there's not enough flow, because then not only is it in a box inside the tank, but the walls usually go up higher than the substrate. So I feel like it just blocks enough of the flow that the bottom substrate layer doesn't get used up, and there's nothing to move the bubbles and gases around to get it going. Gotcha. And that's why I like snails in all my tanks, and they go in through the bottom, and I feel like it gets the tanks going a little bit longer.
Yeah, I've seen quite a few people use those underground filters with the plexiglass boxes or the glass boxes, or even like Nico Rico does with his pantyhose. I think he uses pantyhose for his substrate, and then just a real thin layer. And there's all kinds of ways of doing this, and until you really try it out and see which one works best for you and your budget and whatnot, it's hard to say what the best way is. Dobo just joined us. Hey, Dobo. Brian Dotson. We haven't seen each other in a while. Nightbot's promoting my membership. Hippie John the Fisherman. Hey, how are you? All You Can Wheat says, so I've got an Aquarium Co-op brand sponges, which is all we know is a wide open. Yeah, so those are a little bit coarse. And, Corey's amazing. He's done so much stuff for the hobby, and he's a great guy, and his sponge filters are great for fish, but I don't think I would ever use them in my shrimp tanks just because of the size. At least if you're going to use a power head. If you're using, air power, then babies crawling in and out of that filter's not too big, but not too big of a deal. But I like the coarse ones because then it polishes your water as well. So Dobo's got a question. He says, vacuuming the substrate, yay or nay? It gets so yucky over time. Personally, I don't like to, and I think I have an idea of Grant's stance on this, but I'll let him answer it.
So if the substrate's really nasty, it's because like you added too much food or too much the cholla wood or too much leaves. Like this is why I've stopped adding the woods that break down really fast over time. I prefer really hard woods like the manzanita or spiderwood. They don't really leave mulm bombs or deposits of little breakdowns in the tank. Overfeeding can do this. This is also why I like to add snails that they'll kind of like weave through the substrate and break it down. And that's also why I use plants. So the plants kind of work their way into it a little bit also, but I will never mess with the substrate. And I do everything I can to prevent any of the mold buildup, so I don't ever have to worry about it. I have like an old turtle tank that I just got rid of because it was using it with Brightwell substrate for one of my Matamata turtles, but it was so dirty underneath the substrate. I didn't see that until over time, all the mulm just appeared after I was using it for shrimp, and it never really did good for the shrimp. So I just removed that tank entirely, and I'll start over from scratch rather than try to vacuum it all up.
I know you've mentioned before too that if you have an established tank and you are in there digging around and stirring everything up, that can cause bacterial infections. It could cause problems with the tank, nitrate spikes, ammonia spikes, and it's just not good.
Yeah, I don't touch the substrate at all,
No.
and then
Nope.
that's why the whole method for drip. That's why everybody recommends drip method to fill up your tanks, and that's just to prevent anybody from causing any mix-ups and spill-ups and mishaps. Uh,
Yeah.
I do it as fast as I can without the substrate moving. And like if one or two of the balls like move away at first, that's fine. But you don't want to create the little incaves where they're spewing substrate all out from the pour of the water.
Yeah, it's not good. Definitely don't want to stir up stuff if you don't have to. All right, let's go back and chat. Oh, you can weed again. So we shouldn't do a partial substrate replacement at set intervals. Figured that would give a more steady buffering power overall.
I've got tanks from my original aquatic experience where I got soil, brought it home, and set up tanks that were still buffering. And the only reason why I tore down the rack was because I'm building a new rack in that place to hold more tanks. So, uh, what's going to be the most constant and stable is just keeping up with your water changes and not really trying to mess with the substrate. There are some situations where people have used like stratum and stuff like that where the substrate buffered to like 6.5 and that's the best they ever got, and then they want to add something without really messing up with the plants and stuff that they got. What you can do is get an ice cube tray, fill it up with good substrate, and then fill it up with RO water and make little tiny soil substrate ice cubes, and then take tongs and stick it deep down into the substrate, and that'll help add some buffering capacity if your substrate was diminished early or something like that. You could save it that way, but
It's
I
not a
would
bad idea.
prefer I would prefer though just to set up a whole brand new tank. But I have the room to do that. Not everybody does. So there are little tiny tips and tricks you can do to get around it.
See, I'll chip in here. So what I do is I've got just like a tablespoon or teaspoon or whatever, and I'll do 2 or 3 of those once a day until I feel that I've added a little bit more. If I start to see like my pH start to climb, then just adding a little bit more substrate slowly, so that way you're not spiking the pH too high. Because what you don't want to happen is you don't want to add a bunch more substrate and then have your pH drop quite a bit, because that's going to stress the shrimp out. So if you are going to be adding more instead of taking some out, just do it slowly, do it gradually, a little bit over time. And then I'll even just, in the morning I'll do 2 or 3 scoops, and then in the evening 2 or 3 scoops, and then after 4 or 5 days I'll flatten it all out so it looks better. And that's how I've added more substrate to my tanks. All right. Amber has a question. So, how many tanks do you have, Grant?
That has many answers right now. How many tanks are set up right now? Right around 200. I have.
Okay.
If you go and watch my entertainment center video, that the TV and everything is gone. That whole wall is completely bare right now. I need to go to Home Depot and get some trim, fix the trim. We're gonna paint the wall, and then I'm building a rack to hold 80 plus 10-gallon tanks right there.
Oh, geez. So,
And
what's your goal for the year?
for us to hit, the goal is I got just my goal is until February, and then we're trying to get to 300 tanks by February.
By February, okay, 300
By the
tanks.
end of
That's
February.
crazy.
The end of February.
End of February.
And we took the 2 racks that are on the opposite side of my TV. They moved those in next to my fireplace, and then the other rack is basically created a wall inside my living room. Once me and Shelby can get everything, I got to go to Home Depot to get some electrical cords too, so I can get it all hooked up and all the lights running. But I'll take like a little short video, post it on the YouTube to show how it looks. But the goal is to get all these tanks set up. So we got a lot of work to do.
And I know you're hustling and grinding. I'm sure you're, spending a lot of time at Home Depot. That's probably your
I haven't been there
home
since I
away
broke my
from
leg.
home.
I haven't been there
Oh
since I
yeah.
broke my leg. So
I'm sure it's killing you to get it going too. You're like, all right, I'm behind. I got to get all this stuff out there.
and we were able to build the rack behind me with just scraps left over from the other build. So
That's awesome. Yeah, and if you guys haven't already, go check out Grant's channel over at YouTube. He does a lot of tutorials, as well as he just keeps us updated on his builds and what he's doing. So I just posted a link there. Jarhead Entrepreneur, how are you? PB Aquatics.
our next video is going to be a little different, but it's fun.
Is it? All right. So All You Can Eat says, what meds and water additives are on absolute must-have to always have on hand for keeping the various Caridina varieties?
So I don't use any real medicine for shrimp. What I like to have on hand is some aqua char, and that the reason for that is you never know who's going to come to your house, come look at your shrimp tanks, and your aunt that you hate is going to go, oh, what's the smell in here? And it's all in her head. It doesn't really smell, but it's just in her head. It doesn't smell like perfume and roses. She's going to pull that spray out of the purse and all of those all those perfumes are going to go into your tank, and that's when the aqua char comes in handy. And it's not like the activated carbon where you got to take it out of the tank before it breaks down or anything like that. The aqua char, you could just leave it in the tank, and you're not going to have to worry about your shrimp getting poisoned. And you never know, your mom bug bombs the house or something while you're gone, and you come home and you covered the tanks, but you forgot about the net, and you use the net in the tank to get out a little piece of floating plant, and the net had the poison on it and kills all your tank. But
yeah, that's awful.
Stop it if you just had some aqua char. So I'll keep the aqua char. I do have the Indian almond leaves. If I ever saw like an issue with bacterial infection, I would use the Indian almond leaves. But besides that, I avoid them. I don't use them in any of my other tanks. Just mainly the tanks where I get new shrimp from like an importer. So
for the Indian almond leaves,
yeah, you could use black water extracts and stuff like that too, but I barely ever use it. Water changes is the key when shrimp gets
absolutely
sick.
yeah. So I don't use any like medications exactly, but one thing that I've always found to be super helpful and to have handy is fenbendazole. So fenbendazole will take out planaria, it'll take out hydra, and that's one thing that I like to have on hand, because with all the botanicals we add, all the different stuff that we have, hydra shows up. You'll get hydra every now and then, and fenbendazole I've never killed shrimp with. I've overdosed it. I've used it multiple times, and I've never had any shrimp die from using fenbendazole. So that's one thing that
I have a
I'll say.
different story. That's
Okay.
another one. I would use no planaria than that. The first time
Yeah.
I used the dog dewormer was on my very first Caradina tank. I had some planaria or some hydra. I can't remember what it was,
Yeah.
and I lost a lot of my Caradina. And what I found out was it kills all the bacteria in your filter. And that was a
Okay.
time where I was just buying as many shrimp as I could, trying to get as many varieties as I can, and I was throwing them all into one tank. And I just wanted the color. And I had so many shrimp in that tank, and because of the amount of shrimp I had in the tank crashed because there was no cycled filter. If you have a low amount of shrimp in the tank, maybe it'd be all right. You could have skirted away with it, but if you have a good bioload in the tank already going, I would use no planaria. It's a little less deadly on the bacteria.
That's good to know. So I've never had any problems with it. I've heard that if you have a lot of planaria and then you use it, or a lot of snails that are susceptible to it, because it does kill some types of snails, then you're having a pneumonia spike from the deaths of all the critters.
But
so
that
I know personally
also doubles up with the no bacteria. And what's up,
yeah.
Ruben?
All right, we'll go to the next one. So Driftwood Aqua Studio says, do you use any method to sterilize nets or equipment?
So I got a video on preventing cross contamination where I clean all my nets, my tools like the aquascaping tweezers and scissors, as well as the hose I use for water changes. It's a coral dip from Brightwell, Coral MD, and I just soak it in there for like 30 minutes and then clean it off. And it's not as harmful as bleach, to where if you add it to the tank, it's going to go right into the filter and kill the bacteria. It'll kind of dissolve into the tank, and it's easy to wash off and stuff like that. And it's not that deadly. It wouldn't kill corals in like a 15-minute dip, but if you use it for 30 minutes, it would. So I just nuke it for 30 minutes and it kills everything on the nets. And I haven't had really any issues since I started doing that.
And that's only if you have a tank that's a problem tank, correct? Because most of your tanks are, or that's every time.
Every tank has a different net. If I ever use tweezers from one rack to another, like I'll go for the rack. I'll go from like this tank down to my other tanks, and then when I hit to the tank that has the imported shrimp, then I clean the siphon before I go and do any of the racks. But if I go from one tank to the other or something like that with the scraper, I'll definitely hit it with the Coral MD.
And it's not a bad idea because you can never be too cautious. Hey, John, how are you? All right, let's see. Yeah, we're way back in time. All right. Thank you, Brian, for moderating, getting rid of those. Amber says I could use a change of scenery. No planaria is all natural. Antonio says, dude, that reminds me someone spilled something in my tank on Christmas and didn't tell me. Forked my water quality. Had to do a water change, but a lot of shrimp and fish died. Sorry for your loss, man. John,
when my daughter was little, I gave her a quesadilla for lunch, and I must have been doing water changes or something in another room, and like she wasn't allowed to go play until she was done eating all of her quesadilla. And I came back and it was gone. So she went off and played. And later that night, we're eating dinner, and I was sitting down at the table, and I look over and I see one of my tanks is milky. I'm like, oh, what happened over there? And I see something in the water. I'm like, what is that? And I realized what it was. And I went to go grab it, and it was too late. It was a quesadilla that was so waterlogged that it just went into a big cloud of tortilla and cheese powder. And yeah, it nuked the tank.
Oh, yeah, that's unfortunate. Shrimp Pimpin' says, baby season in full effect. How your tank's doing, Grant? Looks like my lapis colony is coming back to life.
Uh, so I broke my ankle, and Shelby's been helping out as much as possible, but uh, I was only able to do some of my water changes, and she swears that me not touching the tanks as much has helped out, and we've got babies everywhere still, but I think it's because right until I broke my ankle, I was on top of everything, and we really backed off on overfeeding, and there's so much moss in our tanks that I feel like I could slack on my water changes a little bit more. Um, but it is a losing battle right now. I there's so much moss in some of my tanks. I can't do any culling or anything like that. So, but hopefully I can get some lapis off you the next time I come to Texas, Ruben.
So that goes to show that sometimes we do too much. Sometimes less is more with our shrimp tanks. Buffering a lot now. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and just get rid of this screen here, and that should help. Maybe not draw so much of my internet. You guys don't need a sea shrimp. We got Grant.
How's it going, Shrimp Mania?
Hey, how are you, man? Well, I definitely appreciate you jumping in here and answering all of our questions, Grant. I did want to pick your brain a little bit, and when it comes to Caradina, I'm a complete noob. You know, I'm still learning and learning all the different varieties, and I know we talked a little bit about Taiwan bees and Thai bees and Thai bees and the different just breedings between them all and how you get mishlings and would you is that something you would want to dive into and describing
Uh,
the difference between all those?
I'm always down to talk about genetics, but it's
Okay.
gonna be boring. Like you're gonna lose people because some people are into it and stuff like that. I think it'd be better off if you ask me how to make this shrimp, and I tell you like the road to that, rather than
I
explain
gotcha.
the
I
difference
gotcha.
between a Thai bee and a Thai bee because it's so confusing, and like
It is.
I think
That's
there
why I
should
want
be different
clarification.
standards. I think there should be different standards. So I can run through it real quick. A Michelin is a crystal with Taiwan bee genes. A Thai bee is a cross between a bee and a tiger. A Thai bee is when you take a Thai bee and you cross it with a Taiwan bee. But that's where it gets confusing because
Yeah.
a Thai bee can look like a Thai bee, and you don't know unless you were the one to breed it with the Taiwan bee to make sure that it has the Taiwan bee genes. And even if you use the Thai bee, um, that was made from a Taiwan bee and a tiger, it's still not a Thai bee, even if you cross it back and forth. So to me, then it should have the double pigment like a shadow bee or the Taiwan bees have, where
Yeah.
it's two layers of pigment over one another to make it look like it has that deep dark shell. So to me, I don't call anything Thai bee unless it has the double pigment shell. For the most part, everything that is like Thai bee like that, or I just call them Tang Tais or Aurora Tais because they are Thai bees made with tangerine tigers or Aurora tigers, so they get their own name.
Yeah.
But the that's where I wish that we could set standards, but the Germans do it different from the people in Taiwan, and then everybody changes names of everything so they can make an extra dollar.
I
Because the
gotcha.
people that don't know, they see a different type of shrimp and they go crazy blue. Oh, I want that, but it's just a blue steel coal. That's all it was.
Yeah.
So
I was looking at some of that because there was a video I was watching, and some of the shrimp that they were saying was this. I'm like, those are ones I would pull out of my bolt tank as coals. Like that's not anything that I would see and be like, oh, this is really cool. It's like no, it's just a bolt with some you know muddled genetics that just needs to be taken out. And I think it would be cool because in my blue bolt tank right now, I've got I think you were saying it looks like the Misuras. It's got the black head spots, and then some of them have some gold head spots. So I think it would be kind of cool to try to replicate that gold and
careful
blue
though,
and
because if
white.
they have gold or green, then they're not blue bolts. They're steel.
Yeah. Okay. So what's a steel? What
A,
makes a blue steel?
a blue steel is a blue bolt hybrid. So it has
Okay.
tangerine tiger or aurora tiger genes involved to make it a steel.
So if it's got any type of yellow or
Yeah.
orange on it, then it's okay.
The contest organizer, there was one group where the blue bolts, they had a green heads. That
Yeah.
no purebred blue bolts should have a green head. So they got to get yanked and moved to a different category, or I think it's actually a disqualification now.
Oh geez. I think you guys changed the rules because I was looking at it, and it's if
Yeah.
you mislabel or misenter your shrimp, then they are disqualified. Which you guys will still send them back. It's not like it's a death sentence or anything.
Right,
It's
but
a
and I think
it's
we'll
not
even
entered
still
into that.
score your shrimp, so
Yeah.
you could have that. But yeah, you wouldn't win a prize. And for a lot of this time, they'll enter like 3 really nice blues, but then the one of the heads will be green, and that's the red flag. But that's also the one that gets you the least score. So
Yeah. So you got to watch out for that when you're submitting stuff.
right.
I'll uh I'll catch things and I'll send it to you. Be like, hey, what do you think of this? Before I submit it, I'll get your opinion.
I'm not judging, so I can help
Yeah.
you with anything like that. You just can't reach out to one of the judges and ask them what do you think.
No, yeah, I
So
wouldn't do that.
I'm organizing, and so you can message me or Shelby. We're both doing it together, and either one of us could help you out.
Sounds good. Yeah, I'm excited to get into the contest and stuff, and I'm excited to have more tanks so that way I can start selective breeding a lot more. Because right now there's I'll find shrimp. I'm like, oh, that's really cool, and I'd like to keep that genetic going. And I'm like, oh, well, hopefully it survives in the coal tank, and then eventually I can do something with it. But right
Yeah,
now in my coal tank,
I have so many tanks that I want to split up and go in different
yeah,
directions, and I'm like, I need more tanks, even with 230, even when
yeah.
I'm at 300, I think I'll need more tanks. So there's like
Don't tell my
six
wife
different
that.
neos. I could go off and breed different neos for different varieties that aren't out there yet. So
Yeah, I know in my coal tank I got tangerine tigers, blue bolts, crystal blacks, crystal reds, orange eye blue tigers, raccoon shrimp. I got all kinds of stuff in there. Golden bees that came from my crystals and my blue bolts, and I got some crystal reds that are almost like a red bolt color, which is crazy. So they've got like the brown head spot like a high grade crystal to where it just has the head carapace and then the body is like a red steel. Like it's just super red. It's the craziest thing ever. Let's see. All You Can Eat has a question. Aside from the typical water tests, ammonia, nitrite, nitrate, what other parameters should we monitor as shrimp keepers? GH, KH, and TDS. pH occasionally. Once you get into it, once you establish the water parameters, there's not much testing that really needs to be done unless you're seeing deaths. If you start to see deaths, then water testing can really be the first go-to. Like, okay, so things are dying, let's do a water change. Before the water change, let's test the current parameters to make sure everything's good. And you'll find that either your pH has started to climb or your nitrates have started to climb, as well as TDS. And that's with Caridina, of course. Neos could live in your toilet. They're pretty tough, but with Caridina, if you start to see a TDS climb, if your pH starts to get above 6, and nitrates get, so for me personally, any amount of nitrates, you show nitrates, you're probably going to start seeing some shrimp deaths. And I know other people say that there's
it burns the
acceptable
gills,
levels,
so they can't breathe as
but
much oxygen. So
yeah, if I have a problem tank and I do a water test, no matter how slight, there's always nitrates. So if you start to see nitrates at all, then you got to do more water changes, less feeding, stuff like that.
all I test for is pH and TDS.
Yep.
I know what GH and KH I'm adding into my water, so I never
Yeah,
test
unless I
that.
change something. If I'm
The
changing
ammonia and
stuff, then
nitrate I don't worry about.
you'll know. You'll know if you get ammonia.
If you don't have if you have zero algae in your tank, there's no need to test for that really.
Yeah. John says parameters for Neos: warm, wet, and hard. Yep. All right, that's a good question. Shrimp Mania says, what about metallic shrimp? How do you make them?
So I've had a couple metallics pop up from a couple different lines, but for the most part, it needs to be a Serrata tiger, so the tangerine tiger or aurora tiger mixed into the genes somewhere. The only one shrimp where I've seen where it wasn't like that is the safaris, and she claims to use the midnight prince. So maybe that tiger has some of the genes for it involved too. But all of my Aurora Thai and Tang Thai, after 8 generations, I started to get metallics pop out of them. And almost every single Galaxy line out there, I've seen the metallics pop out of them and stuff like that too. It's just rare. And once you get it, it seems you get more and more of them. But if you want to make your own from scratch, I would do Auroras cross with Taiwan bees, and then some back crossing until you get the double pigment overlapping, and then it's just a matter of time until the purple and whatnot will show out.
Yeah, there's a few shrimp that you mentioned that I've never even heard of. The safaris, and then you said the prince. And that just goes to show that there's so many out there and so many different varieties. And I don't know how you know all this stuff, man. It's just time, I guess.
Yeah,
as time goes on.
Before Facebook was really big, or before I jumped on Facebook for the shrimp, everything was on the shrimp spot, and there was tons and tons and tons of posts about how to make this shrimp and how to make that shrimp, and a lot of them were, bull crap. But you'd have to figure out, okay, this guy's legit. He's an actual breeder. Da 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 da. And then you'd find 2 or 3 people that were legit saying the same thing, and then you got to go, all right, that's fact. Let's see if I can replicate it. And then I replicated it, and then that's why I know everything is I've made it. I've made Yellow King Kongs from scratch now. I've done so many things where it was just maybe that's how you did it, and there's 2 different or 3 different options to how to do it. And sadly, mutation is just one of those things that you'll never be able to replicate no matter how hard you try. So
no,
you could get lucky, but yeah, there's always that possibility. So,
and with mutation, there's always a possibility of you creating something different that nobody else has too. So that's always good.
But the problem with mutation doesn't mean that it's fertile, that they can breed
exactly.
afterwards. So my Super Princess bees, I've gotten more Super Princess bees, but none of the mutants that kind of look like blue steels.
Yeah.
I've gotten babies several or buried several different times, and none that look like the parents. So I don't think they can breed.
Yeah, either they're not breeding or those genetics are just not being passed down as like the primary traits. And
right, maybe
so you're not seeing it
future generations or something like that.
So like you said with I think you said the Thai bees, is you don't know what those genetics are unless you bred them yourself, because it's a recessive gene. It may look like a crystal or a crystal black or whatever, but it's got some different genes in it.
Yeah.
So all you can wheat says, Poseidon, last time you mentioned that red and blue calcio won't cross. Did you
need to switch out the headphones?
I could still hear you.
Hold on 1 second. Technical difficulties.
Yep. No worries. While he gets his headset up, I'm gonna grab a drink real quick.
2 seconds. 2 seconds. I'm back.
Took that opportunity to grab a drink. All right, so this is actually a great question for Grant. So last stream you mentioned that red and blue calcio won't cross. Did you mean it's impossible for red to breed with blue, or they just keep to one color or the other? Can they cross with others?
So you can keep red, blue, the scorpions, as well as the blacks all together in the same tank, and you won't get any new shrimp. You'll just get a mix of the reds and blues, blacks, and scorpions.
So they're gonna breed true, like red
Taiwan bees.
Yeah. So like your crystal reds, crystal blacks, you can put them in the same tank, and they're going to, have those offspring. It's not going to be a combination of the two. And let's see. So they will breed together. They're going to reproduce together, but the colors of the babies are going to come out either as the blues or the reds. It's not going to be a mix of them. John says, I tend to like the shrimp that pros call coals. Yeah, I'm with you. My coal tank's my favorite. Grant, is it possible to breed one-sider shrimps, or are they not true breeders? I have a few of them now. I'm not sure what one-sider is.
So one-sider is where the shrimp is different on one color of the face than the other. There's two different types. There's one where it's completely different color, and then the other one is like where the pattern is like broken up and like split, but it's like the same. It's still a red shrimp. I can't remember the names off the top of my head, the scientific names for them, but somebody is breeding the half-siders where it's not like split colors; it's just the split patterns.
That's
Uh,
interesting.
and they were doing like all right with breeding them true, but I want to say the ones that are split right down the middle, a lot of the times they're different sexes. So you'll have a male on one side and female on one side, and what
Oh,
happens
geez.
is the mutation itself just messes up the genitalia, and they're not able to breed with other shrimp. It
It's
just
not
doesn't
good.
line up. So um, I just think it's going to be one of those rare shrimp, and enough breeders out there have gotten their hands on them to where if they were like replicated like that, it would be a more common shrimp. So I just think the one with the broken pattern, it just happens like that's just that shrimp's genetics is split like that.
It
So
almost
I
sounds,
think those are
it,
true outsiders.
yeah, it almost sounds like when mammals, sometimes you'll see the embryos combine and almost like Siamese twins or conjoined twins, sorry. So I wonder if it's, something similar like that, to where it was just you had two genetic makeups combined into one egg, and then you've got this split shrimp.
If you want to know all the scientific background of when like I freshly dove into everything, I have a video. It's called Our Rarest Shrimp, and that's all about half-siders. So it
Okay.
breaks it down into the different types.
All right. Brian says, Shrimp Mania, good question. I have one of those in my Blue Bolt tank. Bottom half left side is black and white, striped, and the right side is blue. That's cool.
Yeah, that's how ours is. Is one side of the shrimp is blue, the other side is like white with black stripes.
That's awesome. So I'll take this time to shout out Nightbot. So if you want to become a member of the Poseidon's Pets Posse, feel free to join. You get all of these fun emojis that you can use, as well as, all proceeds go to my shrimp tank. So it goes to food, water quality, whatever, anything else that I need. So if you want to become a member, feel free to join. It's $2 a month, $2 a month to help support my shrimp. Let's see. Brian Johnson, would be good if they can breed truly. Yeah, so that's what Grant was just saying, that you may get some that breed, you may get some that don't. All you can wheat. What are some of your favorite Carradina to cross? What are your least favorite? It's a good question.
My favorite is the cross with are like Taiwan bees, just because you're gonna get the double pigment and everything looks better, or the orange eyes. Anything with orange eyes, those two traits. So I know like the Black King Kong with the orange eyes and stuff like that. They just look mainly like uh, black tigers with orange eyes. I would like to see like a double pigment on a shadow panda with orange eyes, not just the steels. The steels look kind of nice, but that would be a fun cross to try and come out with. And then the least favorite is like the first three generations of anything you cross with Yellow King Kong or Tangerine Tiger. The genes in Tangerine Tiger are so strong. It seems like everything comes out orange after the first two.
Yep. My Aura Blues and the Tangerines, like all the babies, there's very little blue in them. They're mostly like a muddled orange color. So that tank's fun. I'm excited to see where it goes. But right now, like the shrimp are so ugly. The offspring that are in that tank, they're not looking cool.
I've
They're
got some
almost
like
like a
I've got some like red tang tie. We're
yeah.
crossing with the tangerine tigers, and those seem to be a big hit. But it's like even when they produce red for several generations, you'll still be pulling orange ones out of there. It's annoying.
Yeah, I've been culling a lot of the reds because they'll show up in that tank and they just go into the cull tank. But
Those are the ones
I think
worth
it would be
money.
cool. Yeah, that's why I keep saying, man. Like the cull tank is like I love all the shrimp in there, and I'd love to have a tank specifically just for those. But right now, I don't have the space.
How long until you move?
You tell me. So we signed a contract last January for a new build, and with all the product delays and just the worker delays, and
It's not the
not
right time.
having
Yeah.
all the builders from Mexico not being allowed in, it's tough. It's tough in the construction business. So we have framing up. We have plumbing done. We don't have electrical. We've got part of our roof on. So hopefully 3 months, 4 months. 4 months at the latest. I would say 2 at the earliest. We're looking at like March, April. So not too long. But then, with the new house, there's costs there. So the fish room, I don't know how long it's going to take until I can get that going. But
Right.
as long as I save my YouTube money, then I'll have some extra money. But once the house is done, we are going to set up the business, get the business license, and then I can start investing in everything and have the tax write-offs and stuff. So that's going to be exciting because then I could just buy stuff and be like, oh, it's for my business I'm starting. All the new flooring in that room. Yep, all the racks, all the tanks, all the everything.
All right.
Chimera, there you go. Yeah, so that's what I was thinking, Brian. So Brian says, I heard it's called chimera, meaning 2 eggs merge into one. All right.
That's why a lot of times one side of the shrimp or sometimes it'll have 2 male or 2 female parts, but they don't match up with other shrimp for the new breed.
It's literally 2 into 1.
Yeah.
And that you see it a lot in cats, especially if like 2 different color eyes. All you can we ask, can the Calcio cross with other Caridina outside of the Calcio group?
Then they start to make mutts, and a lot of them look like tangerine tiger crosses. So that's why a lot of people think that the tangerine tigers are yellow King Kongs or something were made to make them, and then the blues with auroras. But that whole line is one of those things where nobody's replicated it. Nobody's come close. Yui has not shared his method with anybody or anything like that. That's his secret. And for all we know, it could have been a mutation, or it could have just been one of his tanks where he threw a ton of culls into, and those came out and started reproducing and replicating right off the first generation. So you never know.
It's definitely interesting to see all the genetics. Hey, All You Can Wheat, thank you so much, man. So we got our new member, All You Can Wheat. You're amazing. So all you members out there, go ahead and do an emoji bomb. Send out all those little shrimpies out to him. And we're still behind in the chat, but I've got the live chat up there so I can see that when stuff happens. All right. So let's see. Shrimp Pimpin says he's crossing a lot of orange eye this year. Amber says it's going to be March. We're going to get our house by our anniversary. Absolutely. So thank you so much, All You Can Wheat. You're amazing. All right. Yeah, so that coal tank I have, I'm excited to see what comes out of it. And I was thinking about doing a kind of a crossbreeding series on it like I have with the Black King Kongs and the auras. Just to show what happens when you get all of these different varieties of shrimp together and what can come from it. Because I think as time goes on, we're going to start to see some interesting shrimp come from it. We'll get a lot of ones that are not the greatest, but I think it'd be cool.
I I want to do a tank, and it could be all males, but I just want to put one of every kind of shrimp that I have.
Yeah,
I think that'd be cool because I have so many, all the Caradina into one tank. That'd be neat.
yeah. That's what my coal tank is it's basically one of everything I have besides the calcios. And once the calcios get going and start breeding, then I'll toss one in there because I'll move plants from tank to tank and I'll move stuff around, and then I'll find the occasional little baby inside the container I was using. And that's something that I would advise for everybody as well, is if you're going to be removing anything from a shrimp tank, whether it's wood, moss, floating plants, make sure that the container you put it in has some type of water in it. Make sure it's got a few inches of water, because I guarantee you're going to have baby shrimp in there. You're going to have juvenile shrimp. No matter how much you shake it, no matter how much you try to get those shrimp out of there, you're going to find shrimp.
Yeah, if you bought moss off of me, you got shrimp probably.
You got baby shrimp. So
I'll dip it in RO water and jugs and shake it off, and people will be like, "I still found a shrimp." I'm like, "I tried."
Yep. That's a freebie, that's considered a gift. So whenever I find those babies that have hitchhiked over, I'll be like, I'll go drip you into the coal tank. We'll throw you in there and see.
Think about the Galaxy Pintos that went to guppy tanks, though.
Yes, it's unfortunate. That was a $40 feeder. Alan Tooth, how are you? Says it's great to see both of you.
Alan, you missed the good talk. Where were you, buddy?
Yes, and we're still going, but you can always
not today. The last weekend.
Gotcha.
He's a local, and he didn't show up, and he missed the plant auction. You better have a good excuse, Alan.
Well, hopefully everything's okay, and he doesn't have a good excuse. All You Can Wheat says, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much of a learning curve would a calcio tank be? So far for shrimp, I've done Neo. Should I start with something easier first? My experience, Caradina is all going to be pretty much the same. Tigers are very prolific. So like your tangerine tigers, your auras, raccoon shrimp, they're going to be the hardier of the varieties. But I would say it's about the same. What are your thoughts, Grant?
Calcios are my hardest shrimp, I'll be honest. For whatever reason, I can't get the reds to ever get going. Shelby they're one of her favorite shrimp, and her tank lasted longer than mine. And I just think like I get unlucky, and I get heavy males every time I order them.
Really?
I think I'm getting more this weekend. I'm buying somebody's entire shrimp collection on next Monday. So
that's always exciting.
I'm adding like another 16 tanks from them, or 15 or something like that. So I gotta go pick that up. Are they just
giving up?
Yeah, they're doing other stuff. So
gotcha.
I'll have that video and stuff like that. If you saw the picture for the thumbnail, we just went to an animal sanctuary. So the next video will be about that.
Nice.
And then I need to do a video for the Orlando Shrimp Contest. I need to do a video for the Neo Caradinas outside because they were in 32-degree temperatures last night. I need to do a video on the Sulawesi shrimp that need to go in the back. And yeah, I feel bad, Alan. You had COVID, so I'm glad you didn't show up. But you missed some good talks. Hopefully, you watched my last video and figured out the little tips and tricks that we learned there. But it was still a good demonstration.
Yeah, thank you for staying home and not continuing to spread everything. Definitely appreciate that. And I'm still getting over it. You could hear it in my voice. You could hear it in my sinuses. It's been a month. I was sick for 10 days and didn't really want to do much. I wasn't completely sick, like down for the count, but there was a good 3 or 4 days where I did nothing but slept, and then for a week I didn't want to do anything but sit in my chair. So I'm with you, man. I hope you feel better, and there's more to come as far as every day is a new symptom and new journey. But I'm glad it's you're able to enjoy this talk with us and not not be on a ventilator somewhere.
I have some Downoi for you too, by the way. Message me for before the next talk.
Some what?
Downoi, Pogo
Oh,
Alpha Downoi.
I heard datnoid. I'm like, you've got datnoids. I'm like, I don't think you have space for anything like that, man. So you mentioned neocardinas, and without giving too much away for your video, 32 degrees. Is everybody okay? Everything all right?
No,
Okay.
everything's fine. It's just
Good.
the plants are growing crazy out there. So I just thought I'd do an update video because everybody asks how they do in the winter. So I just figured I'd do a video. And
what's the hottest temps your tanks get to outside?
The black barrel was 92 degrees.
Okay. So I probably won't be able to do it here. What's your hottest temps that you guys get outside? Like besides the water, just in general.
Was it 102 or 104 last year?
Okay.
Maybe. I don't think so. I don't remember.
Yeah, so I can't.
Maybe that was in the whole state of Florida, not us. But my county is weird. In the wintertime, we'll get like colder than like a couple of counties below us on some of the cold days. And then in the summer, we're warmer than a couple of counties below. But that's because they get all that Gulf breeze coming off the coast. And for whatever reason, we just don't get that where I live. And it can get scorching hot.
Yeah, I know heat. It gets to 120 here, so definitely not. I don't think I'd be able to do stuff in the summer outside, but I could definitely do stuff before it gets that hot.
In the summertime, I'm definitely trying to get out of the greenhouse before 10 o'clock.
Yeah, it gets hot, man. I'm with you. John John says same with Plico tanks. Always one more hiding up the wood. All right, Shrimp Pimp. We'll see you. Alan says, there's a good 3 or 4. I have lingering fatigue that I can't get rid of, but I'm not sick anymore, but no motivation. Yeah, that'll go on for a little bit. Hope you feel better, man. See you, Driftwood. Jamie says, yeah, I have no issues with heat too.
I'm sorry.
No, you're good. Jamie says, I have no issues with heat too. Well, yeah, you live in Canada where your tanks will freeze over outside. You would have shrimpsicles. John says I could do winter tubbing. Yeah, I could probably. But the whole idea to me of having tanks outside and having these large breeding tubs outside is to get the shrimp to breed faster and better than you would inside. Now, if temperatures are cold outside, that's going to be counterproductive because they're going to slow down on breeding. It's not going to be as lucrative. So I could breed during the colder times here in Arizona, but I don't know if it would be more successful or less successful than just setting up a tank inside.
Yeah, no, that was the thing, and that's why I wanted to do a video. Yesterday, I'm walking now without crutches.
Good.
So I'm trying to get as much done. Like today we went to Hobby Lobby so I need to take better pictures for the website. So I got like little baseball cases, and I'm going to paint the sides and just a little bit of substrate in them and try and get better photos. But
nice.
Yesterday I had a wholesale order, so I had to go catch 200 yellows and 200 blues, and I was surprised about how many buried females I was pulling out.
Even in the cold.
The thing is, they'll get buried, but in the summer, they'll release those eggs in 20 days.
Yeah.
And that's how quickly every 20 days, they'll get buried up and shoot out babies. So in the winter, though, it goes out to 40. In the spring and fall, It's like every 30 days. So
going back to your talk about the little baseball cases, what I've found works pretty good to show off is just something like this. You catch them and throw them in there, and then that way you can float it in the tank. But I'm not sure how that would do for photos.
I'm gonna paint the sides and put a little substrate in them, and then I haven't tried at all with making this a business. Like you're talking about getting your business for your shrimp, you're gonna beat me to it, probably.
It's all good, man. Everybody's on their own journey and path, and
I've just people are like, "Oh, you got pictures?" And I posted pictures up there, and then there's the same pictures I've been using for like 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
So I need to update everything, and then I've got some things I need to get in movement. And the first step was get the new logo. Now that I have that, I've got no excuses. I need to start working on other things.
Yeah. Because this is your full-time job, right? This is all you do, or are you doing other stuff too?
No, this is all I do.
Yep. So that's my goal, and I do well at what I do, but I don't want to work for somebody else my entire life. I want to go do something that I enjoy, and creating my own business is that. Now, if that never comes to where this supports me and my family, that's fine. At least I'm doing something I enjoy and bringing some more income in that we could have some fun with. But eventually, I would love to be able to tell my boss, like, hey, it's been great the last 5 years, 10 years, whatever, but I'm out of here. I don't need this anymore. I'm doing my own thing.
No,
So
the
that's
goal
always
is
always the dream.
my goal right now is to get show. She manages a West Marine. She makes decent money, but it's always like all these shows that we want to go to and
Yeah,
traveling and stuff like that. She just doesn't get enough time off. And even if she doesn't step away altogether, I want her to step down from being a manager and work maybe only 3 or 4 days a week, so we could
do
focus
something
more
part
on
time.
just focus more on this, because she's got all the fish and stuff she wants to breed, and we've got the tank space and stuff like that to do it. So I've got another 30 ponds outside that if I didn't break my ankle, those would have been running already. There's just so much that we could have gotten done and focus
Yeah,
on, where if she wasn't working, we could be making enough money to have her step down from her job. So that's the goal.
absolutely. Because it's more time with your family, more time together, and it's when you do something that you love, it's not really work. Like, yeah, it's physically taxing and mentally taxing, but it's stuff that I would say that you would do anyways because you enjoy the hobby, and now you're getting making some money off of it and supporting your family and stuff like that's awesome. Well, I usually stream for about an hour. It's it's up to you on how you feel, if you want to keep going, if we want to call it. I know we've got up to
Uh,
12 people. Chat's dying a little bit, but it's not
we
completely
can run
dead.
through the questions that are up and then call it quits if we don't have any questions.
Yeah, that sounds good.
I just see two from Alan. There might be another one.
Let's see. So Alan says, pretty good to show office. Hey Grant, do your Caradina shrimp reproduce all through the winter? It's a good question.
So this is the myth, and
Ew, Skelly.
when I first did the hobby, I was doing landscaping, and I worked all summer, all spring, all fall, and then I come to winter, and you'd get like 2 months off basically, where I just got to show up to a couple people's houses, and a lot of time I would just send my employee to do it. I wouldn't even do that. He'd go show up to their house, blow off the leaves, and take care of, make everything look nice. Or you have to cut a couple of yards before Christmas to make everything look good. But for the most part, my winter was my vacation. And even with the shrimp breeding, the myth was that the shrimp don't breed all year round, that they stop breeding sometime in October, November, and then they don't pick up again until the end of February, March. So I just stopped taking care of them during the wintertime. Like, if they're not going to breed, why do water changes and all that stuff? And then when I went full time, I got in a groove where I was doing water changes and keeping up with everything. And when winter came, I didn't want to get lazy. So I just went through it gun ho and kept doing everything. And by the end of the year, not everything bred, but I think I had like 150 tanks at the time, and everything but 5 tanks kept breeding throughout the entire
That's
winter, and
awesome.
a good amount of babies. Not just like, oh, this tank slowed down. No, what I did was I increased my water changes. Instead of doing 20, 30%, I did 50% throughout that whole year. And I kept feeding throughout the winter and treating them like I normally would. And I've kept doing that. And like my cardinal shrimp and stuff like that, those tend to slow down during the winter times and stuff like that. But uh, now out of 230 tanks, if I have 5 of them that aren't breeding right now, I'd be surprised.
Yeah, it kind of surprises me when I get that comment. And with us living in such a temperate climate. You know, we don't have the big freeze and the big cold that a lot of states and a lot of countries have. So for us, you know, our houses are pretty temperature controlled. You know, I don't run a heater at all. It's been as low as, you know, in the 30s, but we won't turn the heater on ever. And my tanks stay at, you know, above 70. They stay 70 to 74.
I got the shrimp legend calling me himself, Mike Esposito. I'm gonna have to call him back after the stream.
Nice. So I think it depends on where you live and how you keep your house. If you keep your house cold, of course, in the winter they're going to slow down because temperature is a big factor there. But you know, I don't think it's a set in stone thing. I think there's a lot of factors that go into it. And like Grant said, if you're not doing water changes, if you're not taking care of the shrimp like you normally do, well, yeah, that's going to slow down everything. But if you keep your house at 50 degrees Fahrenheit, you know, they're going to be a little lethargic. They're not going to want to eat. They're not going to want to breed. Baby maturation is going to slow down. And so there's all kinds of factors.
And I talk about that, and I got a video of breeding shrimp through the winter where I talk about light cycle and everything like that too. So
that's how I knew you were going to answer the question before you answered it.
Well, I watch some other people's streams and talk with them, and I'm like, you don't watch my videos, man.
Yeah.
I'm not watching their streams no more.
There's a few people I watch, and you're one of them. I'll watch your stuff. And that's not because I dislike everybody. It's just I don't have time. I don't have the time. I've got all my tanks, a full-time job, YouTube. I don't have time to watch YouTube that much.
I only just now broke my leg and have time to, like, you know what I mean? So the last 6 weeks, I've probably watched more YouTube than I have my entire life combined. And yeah people, I watch your videos all the time. And then you're talking to them, they can't pronounce your last name right. That's how I start my videos off, man.
It's the intro. Yeah, I'll see that too. People ask me questions, and I did a video on it like the week prior. I'm like, you're not up to date on videos, or you're just not watching my stuff. I understand. People's got lives, and there's tons of YouTubers. Like we've got 2,000 subscribers. Like to us, that seems like a lot, but in the grand scheme of YouTube, that's not. We're little guys still, and that's okay.
I'm proud of my Facebook. Facebook is bigger than YouTube. That's hard to do.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. One more question from All You Can Weed. He says, or she says, I don't know. One last one. How to tell if a hardscape rock is safe for Caridina tank? Is calcium leaching an issue?
I just have my rocks that I stay away from. The maple leaf is a big no. Like that will produce algae in your tank. The phosphates that leach out of that are insane. Real true Cerulean stone you shouldn't use. Stay away from limestone or coral or anything like that. I'll use dragonstone as like my go-to for Caridina tanks. You just got to wash all the clay out. The clay will eventually break down and affect the pH a little bit, but very minute compared to other stones and stuff like that. So I can't remember the whole vinegar, like scratch it and then pour vinegar on it, and if it bubbles or something like that, that method's out there. But I just know what rocks to stay away from. The petrified wood is a good one, but then there's woods that could have copper in it and stuff like that. I've never had any issues with that, so I use the petrified wood also.
Yeah, I've heard dragonstone over time, like few year period, you know, it can start to leach a little bit of KH into your tank, which will. So with that, you want to stay away from like the big things like the limestone, because that's going to affect the pH greatly. Now, if you have something that's slowly affecting your pH, slowly raising the KH, all it's going to do is cost you money, because it's going to eat away at your substrate and you're going to have to replace the substrate sooner. So if you really like the look of it, then you can get away with it. But if you're not wanting to have to replace that substrate more often, then it's not a big deal. I was going to use dragonstone in my tanks and then was advised not to. And so I just, you know, less is more. I've gotten rid of basically everything. I've got some cholla in there and some moss, and then I use almond leaves, and that's it. And even after talking to Grant, I'm thinking about going away from the cholla wood. but we'll see how it goes. I haven't had any issues besides my cold tank completely being eradicated, which it's a pretty big one there.
Have you ever gotten the teddy bear choya? The big pieces? I was like, oh, this thing's gonna be awesome, and yeah, that's all it did. Within 2 months, the whole bottom of my tank was covered in mold, and then at the seams of the big pieces, they were just falling apart, and it was a mess.
Not good. So we got Quiet Money in here. Says 2 of the GOATs, greatest of all time. Thank you. Appreciate it. There you go. Thanks, All You Can Wheat. So All You Can Wheat says, my name is Tim. I'm a he. Thank you for telling us your pronouns. Don't want to misgender anybody. Jamie says, what's a good level of ammonia in a new cycling tank? So I know with Brightwell, we don't run into that too often because there's no ammonia leaching from it. But you've been in the hobby longer than I have. And with Amazonia and other things that do leach the ammonia, what would you say is what do you want to shoot for when cycling the new tank, and or do you just let it go?
I just let it go and do its thing. This is where I find is so problematic is when people add ammonia to tanks. Almost I mean, maybe there's people out there that haven't come to me with a problem about it, but every time I've heard of somebody using ammonia, their tank takes like 3 to 6 months to cycle. And it's just not needed. The shrimp's bioload is so low that there's a lot of shrimp breeders out there that don't even cycle their tanks. They just substrate and go. And the reason why that works is because there's such a low bioload. But then the tricky part is feeding enough for the shrimp to be happy because there's no biofilm in the tank. So when I cycle my tanks, I run it for 30 days and I really don't check any parameters. And when the shrimp go in there, the bioload is handled by whatever the filter is cycled on, but the shrimp have enough food that I don't have to feed them for the first week. That way I'm not spiking the bioload in the filter in the system high at all. So that's what we do.
So if somebody was using like an ADA and Amazonia and cycling their tank, then just let it go, and then once you don't show ammonia, do your water change to remove any nitrates, and you're good to go. I've always been a firm believer on at least setting your tank up for a little bit. My favorite thing to do is set a tank up, throw some snails in it, give it a week or two, and then start adding shrimp slowly. Depends, of course, on what kind of soil you're using. If you're using something that does release ammonia, then you don't want to do that. But if it's like Neos, I'll throw in a tank after 2 weeks. If it's been set up and there's a little bit of growth, and especially because I have so many tanks that I can just clean my sponges in that new tank, and I've already added bacteria. I've already added, good microflora and fauna to it that way. And a couple weeks is all you need, as long as you're not stocking 100 shrimp in there. If you're putting like 5 or 10 shrimp.
I did that. You can't see it, but the tank up here, I put probably 100 shrimp in there after 2 weeks, just because they were in a 55-gallon tank that I tore down on my entertainment center. So but they were Bloody Mary crossed with red cherry, and I've got orange, yellow, blue, red, all in the same tank and no wild. So I'm gonna move the multicolored ones into their own tank and try to get several different colors breeding without wild. So I think
there you go.
So that's a future video I got to do. Just there's not enough time in the day.
I'm with you. I know once we're done here, I'm gonna go record that video on why my coal tank died. And then depending on editing, I'll release that tomorrow, or I'll throw something else up. So Brian identifies as a unicorn. Thanks for sharing, Brian. And Jamie says ADA Amazonia version 2. So yeah, just once your ammonia's down and everything looks good, then I'd say you're good to go, man. Just with my only thing with the soils that release ammonia is, what's the nitrogen cycle? What's that do? When you have an ammonia source, that bacteria is then going to turn it into nitrates. So this whole time your tank is cycling, you're just building nitrates in that tank. So when the tank's ready to go, you almost want to do like 100% water change, like just get all that water out of there, get it going. But that's also why I like Brightwell, is because I don't have to do all that. I don't have to worry about ammonia. I don't have to worry about the cycling. And BJ says, thank you. I was just going to order some choya. Guess I won't use the Dragonstone. And choya is great. I love it, but it can cause issues and people have had problems. So it's just something to keep in mind.
All right, one last question though. My stomach is yelling at me. I see Quiet Money. If you want to bring that one up.
Yep.
All right. What makes a boa?
What makes a boa galaxy?
I'm sorry. I should have plugged my computer in. There's like a slight lag, so like there's a pause, and I'm like, all right, he's waiting on me, and I go to talk, and then you're already talking.
You're good,
like,
man. You're good. Go for it.
All right. So for Galaxy, you need to make a pinto, and the type of pinto that sets a Galaxy aside from the German pintos, like the spothead pintos and the zebra pintos, is the Serrata gene. So you take a Tai B and cross it with the Serrata. That's where you get your steels and stuff like that. Also, your Nanashi, your Nancy, whatever you want to call them. And then from there, it's just selective breeding. And you want to get the back line on it and at least 9 dots on the face for it to be considered a galaxy. But
9 dots?
9 dots for it to be considered a galaxy. And then, it can just have the stripes on the back, and that's just a galaxy pinto. Or, when you have the stripes plus the back line, then you get the zebra pintos. And then when the dots, you get more and more dots on the face. It's when they completely merge together. And some people call her boas, like with 2 big, nice cheek spots. To me, it's more than that. It needs to look like a boa constrictor pattern, not like one of the new morphs and stuff like that, where they're going crazy different patterns, but like the original boa pattern on the snakes and stuff like that. It should have that kind of pattern on the face. You want many dots on the back, but all you need to make a Galaxy Pinto is a Tangerine Tiger and a Taiwan B, and then from there it's just selective breeding into the different generations. But you could use Aurora Tiger, but you could use any Taiwan B. It doesn't matter.
So with that being said, my Black King Kong and Orange Eye Tank, if like say I start getting some of those like blue pinto colors that I'm going for, I take those pintos and cross them with my Aura Blues, I can eventually start to get towards that galaxy. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, but with your Black King Kongs, you might not even need to cross them. They might already have some Aurora genes. Okay. The white face masks, usually that tells me that they've already got the gene in them. But if they didn't, you could just cross them, the Black King Kongs with the Auroras and make them. The orange eyes would actually slow it down.
Oh, you think so?
Yeah, it would be way quicker to avoid the orange-eyed tigers, because then you're having two generations of tiger genes where you want mostly the Taiwan B for the overlapping. You just want simple pattern off of the tigers.
Gotcha. So for that tank and creating those blue pintos, do you think it would have been easier to use auras instead of the orange eyes? Or
if your goal was blue pintos, yeah.
Okay. It's good to know. Yeah, I'm excited for that tank though, to see how it comes, especially with those babies I was showing you. And I'm gonna do an update video on it here soon and show you guys what I've experienced and what I've been seeing. Looks like we have some people leaving. Blue Tune just showed up. Welcome to the stream, Blue Tune. Just got the end of it. You can always catch the replay though. Let's see. Brian's leaving. Nope, Brian's still here. All right. So we're going to go ahead and end it. So thank you guys so much for coming in here and hanging out with us and all of the great questions. This is exactly what I was hoping for when I invited Grant in here. So Grant, thank you so much for your time, man, and hanging out with us and answering any questions that we had.
No problem. Does anybody stream after you?
Not that I'm aware of.
Well, maybe we should make it a thing where I'll jump onto your channel like the last 30 minutes or something like that, and then I'll stream after you or something like that and make it like a a nice shrimp Wednesday. What is it? Wednesday? It's Wednesday, right?
Yeah, Wednesday. We could do that. I
And
usually
my
go
week
for
is all
about
messed up because the kids didn't have school on Monday, so I'm like,
yeah.
it feels like Tuesday, but it's
Like what
Wednesday.
day is it? Yeah, let's plan for that. That sounds good because I'll stream for about an hour. I'll show off my tanks and do my thing, and then if you want to jump in around like 11 and then start your stream at or well it would be 1 for you and then start
Yeah,
your stream at 1:30 or something. We could do something like that.
and then
We'll figure it out.
but I'm always down to talk. I'm sorry, I'm gonna ruin all of your surprises when you cross shrimp for you, but
It's all good.
thanks for
I'll
having
just
me
come
on,
to
man.
you before I start crossbreeding and be like, hey, I want to do this. What do I need to put in there?
Or try to figure out what can cross with raccoons. There's got to be
Yeah.
something. They're so prolific. So
Yeah. I wanted to get more for the coal tank, so I definitely want to see about getting more of them. All right. Anything else? Everybody just saying goodbye. Oh, hey, Kay. Kay asks, are you streaming next then, Grant?
nah, me and Shelby
Not
have
today.
had a rough week, so no streaming this week. Possibly next week.
Yeah. But we'll plan for that. Jump in here and then you can do your stream. Great. Double stream Wednesday. Perfect. Well, thank you guys so much for coming in. Thank you, Grant, for everything, and we'll see you guys next Wednesday.
See you, man. Later, guys.
Bye.